want to claim to be an expert in breastfeeding. I totally am not. I just know about my own journey, my own experiences, and the things that I have learned while I've been on that journey. And with having been someone with low milk supply, I've done a bit of reading, trying to work out what were some of the issues behind that. And from what I understand, there are 3 areas where it can go wrong. 1, it's to do with routine, in terms of how much you're feeding, how regular, how you're switching sides, all that sort of stuff. 2, it's to do with the baby and the latch, or maybe something like a tongue tie or a bubble palate or whatever, and their anatomy and their ability to feed and drink the milk effectively. Or 3, it's an issue with mum and her anatomy, from the point of view that maybe there's not enough tissue, there's insufficient tissue to make milk, or there's a hormone issue, or there's a sense of stress that is stopping the body from making milk, or there's not enough oxygenated blood in the body, so if there's been a severe blood loss during the birth or whatever. So those 3 things: 1, something wrong with the routine; 2, something wrong with the baby and their feeding technique; or 3, it could be something wrong with mum and her physically. Now for me, when I look back on my journey, I know that the routine was all a bit crazy, and that was partially enforced by us being in the neonatal ward in those early days, and we weren't really allowed to feed any more than every 3 hours, and they wanted us to give formula, and that wasn't helping with the supply and demand side of things when it comes to breastfeeding, which needs to be established really early on and consistent, following those cues for feeding in particular, and not waiting for a routine to feed. So the fact that we were set to every 3 hours in those first few critical days probably didn't help at all. And then as time progressed, I know that we were feeding for every 2 hours, and then it stretched out to every 3 hours, and then 4 hours, and so on. But that's not how breastfeeding works. It's a very responsive thing. You need to look at what the baby is telling you. If they're saying they're hungry, feed them. If they're saying they need comfort, comfort them. If they're saying I got a dirty nappy or diaper, sort that out instead. So it's all about reading the cues of your baby and learning to understand what they are communicating to you. In terms of item number 2, I know that for my baby, he had a tongue tie, and I also know that on assessment he had what's called a bubble palate, which means his palate is really quite high up, and probably wasn't allowing him to get a proper good bite of the nipple to get effective feeding of milk as well. So that was always going to be an issue that couldn't really be resolved. And I know for some babies there are things around health issues that make it harder for them to feed, or make it harder for them to gain weight as well, so they just want to keep feeding and eating more, and it's never enough, so that's always a complication. And then 3, and to do with mum, I know that during my first trimester of pregnancy, I didn't feel the achy boob feeling that a lot of women report to feel, and I don't have the biggest boobs. I'm not that well endowed, and I am sure that has been an issue. I probably don't have sufficient tissue for making milk, but I worked what I had, did the best that I could with what I had, and despite all of those circumstances, I fought trying to increase milk supply. Still was never really able to do it, apart from when I was on a bit of domperidone to help boost supply, but that's something that you can't really rely on either. So when it comes to issues around milk supply, and low milk supply in particular, think of those 3 things. Which of those 3 things is the stumbling block for you, and how can you overcome it? What are the things that you can do to help rectify those issues and make breastfeeding much easier? Or if you're supporting a mum who is going through breastfeeding issues, is there something around those 3 areas, around the routine, around the baby's anatomy and effectiveness to feed, or around the mum's anatomy and her overall health and well-being and ability to produce milk, that can be addressed or supported, or worked into a good feeding routine that may need extra supplementation in some format as well, or might need extra pumping and then supplemented later on? So I want to leave that with you this week, folks, and I will see you all next week. But be sure actually to check out my video telling my own story of my breastfeeding journey, and to like this video and give me a subscribe or a follow wherever you're watching. Thanks, folks.